Welcome back to Wednesdays with Wilfred. I'm your host, Wilfred Samking. And this week we have an incredible guest, Doug Collier, an alumnus of the Faculty of Science, the person who took the lazy out of Lazy Boy and helped Lazy Boy become the global player it is today. All our listeners and viewers right now are taking notes and trying to find that trajectory. How does a science grad or alumnus end up being one of the top investors and a business mogul in North America?
Well, first of all, let's clarify, not a business mogul by any stretch, but it's been an interesting journey from Manitoba and from science to what I'm doing now and what I've done over the last 30 years. I grew up in Portage Prairie, so now we're outside of Winnipeg, and my dad was a doctor in Portage and got his pharmacy degree at U of M, and then ultimately got his medical degree a little bit later. And it was always just assumed that all of us kids, I have two sisters and a brother, that we'd all go to University of Manitoba, which we did. And I really, like so many kids that are leaving high school, had no idea what I wanted to do. And my mother, and I've told this story any number of times, but my mother would routinely say, Douglas is going to be a doctor like his father. So I thought, whatever. I had a best friend that was in a similar situation, and he and I both went into science, into pre-med. And interestingly, both of us ended up in business. But I realized that as much as I loved science, and I really do still do, I more or less passed out at the sight of blood. So being a doctor was not necessarily a wise or simple choice for me. And so I knew I wanted to finish my degree in science and then figure out what I was going to do. And I was casting around a little bit. And then I took a trip to Toronto to visit my sister, who she had graduated from commerce at U of M and had started her career in advertising. And I went there for spring break, and she exposed me to the business world, which I had absolutely no connection to that point whatsoever. And as you can imagine, a young advertising executive in Toronto, it was a pretty cool kind of life she was leading, or at least seemed to be to me. And she suggested that I think about getting an MBA and doing my GMATs. And so I did that and ultimately got accepted at the Rotman School. From there, got a job with General Electric in Canada, and made my way from there down to Whirlpool in the US, and then ultimately did a number of different things in US and Europe, and in the tech business a little bit, and then made my way to Lazy Boy, where I've spent the last 12 years before transitioning to this new role and life that I've begun.
When it comes to a BSc or a BA, they ask, what can you do with it? And you're a prime example of, from U of M, you can go anywhere. And we're very thankful for that, because I think more students need to hear stories like yours where you make opportunities for yourself. My next question is, with all the success that you've had, how do you even have time to be a member of the Alumni Council and the Faculty of Science Advisory Board? It seems like U of M keeps pulling you back, and we're thankful for that.
As I mentioned, I'd spent 12 years at Lazy Boy in different roles, the front side of the business, meaning sales and marketing and merchandising, as well as running our business outside of North America, and believed as I went through that process that I would want to have the top job in the organization. Whether or not I would have had it, who knows? I went from believing I wanted that to knowing I very much did not want that. That there were just a lot of different things that I wanted to do. And we at Lazy Boy, while I was going through this kind of philosophical transition of how I wanted to spend my life, but didn't know exactly what it was that I wanted to spend it on. I just knew I didn't want to kind of do that for the next 20 years. We invested in a couple of startup companies, and I got involved with one of these companies, joined their board, and I was at a dinner, and this is the theme of my life has been these serendipitous connections that lead to crazy different places. That had that connection or that thing not happened, I would have done something entirely different. And so I was at a dinner of this company we were invested in, and I was sitting between a woman on this side who was CMO of a company called Shinola, which is a watch company, an interesting company out of Detroit, and another woman, and they had both earlier on that day been at a local selection panel for entrepreneurs for a nonprofit organization that supports entrepreneurs, and they suggested that I get involved as a mentor with this organization. And my initial reaction is, well, what do I have to tell a startup founder? I've never done that before. I've just lived in the corporate world. And they assured me that there were things that hopefully I could provide some value. And so I got involved with that, realized very quickly that I was having way more fun doing that than I was doing what I was doing. And knowing I wanted to transition anyway, I now knew what I wanted to spend at least some of my time doing. And so in January of 19, I told the organization and the board that I was going to leave. In June of 19, I left. And now getting to the actual answer to your question, my goal was to create a portfolio of things. So on the vocational side, that it would be a combination of board stuff, so serving on boards of organizations, either established companies and or earlier stage companies, the early stage investing and advising piece of it, but also finding ways to give back and reconnect with friends, families, organizations, et cetera. And one of the things I knew I wanted to do was to reach back out to the U of M, because I'd been very much not connected since I left Canada. And just coincidentally, Dr. Steffi Baum was coming through St. Joe to visit her daughter in Ann Arbor, and asked to meet, and that led to getting involved with the Faculty of Science Advisory Board and on a couple of committees, and ultimately recently to the Alumni Council. And it's just so rewarding to be back engaged with such an amazing institution that gave me part of my start onto where I went.
It's so wonderful when there's a pathway and there's deans and alumni relations and all these other sectors in the university that are reaching out to really make sure there's a way to get connected. And speaking about investing, I'd be remiss if I didn't ask the question for those young entrepreneurs out there and those business owners, the UM business owners and operators. What are the biggest things or the key things that you look for when investing?
So I'll answer this question with the reality that I've only been doing this for 2 years. So I don't have a whole lot of gained wisdom to share. I would not be the right person to look to in general, but I will say that my objective is quite simply to try and help founders and companies improve their outcomes. Sometimes that's going to be through investing, sometimes it's going to be through mentoring, advising, connecting them with the right person at the right time with the right skill set or information. And so it's just how do you help these organizations start and succeed and hopefully have good outcomes. In terms of my own investing philosophy, it's fairly wide ranging, but it's focused on the areas in which the world is changing, whether it be focus on more healthy foods. That's an area that I've done some work in terms of technology, whether it be wireless charging or improved technology for display screens or location tracking for kids and pets, or providing video technology for e-commerce sites and real estate websites, just areas that are in the growing part or the changing part of our world.
Being part of creating a better future seems to be part of your philosophy. What would you like to see change either in the business field, or what would you like to see more of in the field of commerce?
There are a lot of things that I think need to change faster than they are. The most obvious one is the amount of diversity in investing is far less than it needs to be. And it starts with getting more diverse funders of ideas and companies. So you've got a lot of VC firms in Silicon Valley, and they're really kind of wrestling with how do they improve the diversity of their teams, because there's been some really interesting stories about some really powerful businesses that have been presented And the people just could not understand the opportunity because they don't have the history of using those products or living in those communities. And it's so important to have that match between someone's life experience and what the entrepreneur is trying to create. And so that has got to continue to change. And I think having more funding by diverse people will lead to more diverse founders being recognized as having great ideas. There's actually an organization here in Michigan that just started a few months ago called Commune Angels. And it started by 4 Black individuals who their goal is not necessarily to only invest in diverse candidates or only take money from diverse funders, but it's definitely to err on those sides on both sides. So they're not going to ignore a great deal, but they definitely are going to lean that way. And I think it's that kind of thing has to happen at broader kind of level across the world. The other thing that's important, and back to the university, what I found again in this incredibly short time that I've been doing this, is the founders that are most agile and flexible and gritty are ones that have the most broad set of knowledge and can connect something from this field to that field. And so that interdisciplinary thinking, that integrative thinking is so important to success. And so I think there's a big opportunity in educational institutions and of course University of Manitoba to find ways to teach that and expose, whether someone's in science, expose them to entrepreneur classes, either in science itself, which is something they just started, or to commerce classes, or someone in arts, to something in education. Just the more connections you have, the more visibility to different ideas and different possibilities, I think makes you a better thinker. Now, we need specialists. We need people that are experts and scientists that know what they're doing at a level that we can't comprehend. But we need those specialists to be offset or equal amounts of generalists that really kind of look at the world in a very diverse and interconnected way.
I think there's so many students and young alumni and even seasoned or experienced alumni out there that may still be trying to figure out what they love, what they want to do. And it's almost like there's a ticking clock in the back, but I think you're a true example of, try as many new things as possible, keep learning, and you might find a passion, and then you just grab onto it and you see where it goes.
Yeah, and I would add, and I've said this in different events I've been involved with the university, is when you're an undergrad student, you've obviously got a lot of stuff on your plate. You're studying, you're living the university life, hopefully on campus soon, but find ways to get exposed to different people and different subject matter and different cultural opportunities, because you never know which one of those is going to lead to your life, right? And I look back through my career, and I've got probably 5 or 10 or 15 seminal moments that, had they not happened, had I not talked to that individual or been exposed to that subject matter, I would have done something entirely differently. Like, I was contemplating being a music teacher when I was in science. Again, had I not gone to visit my sister in Toronto, that may have been what I would have done. And who knows, would have been fantastically happy, though probably not very talented at being a music teacher, but that's another matter. But it just shows that you never know what your future holds, and the more options you give yourself by exposure, the more chance you're going to end up with something you love.
And we can't wait to see you on Dragon's Den, because you'd be fantastic on it. And thank you for making everyone at the University of Manitoba extremely proud. On behalf of the University of Manitoba Alumni Relations, a big thank you and much more success in everything that you do.
Thank you, Wilfred. It's been a pleasure.